I'm Jacqueline with VetOvation. This is the setup and cleaning for the gastroscope. First of all, handling for the endoscope will be to make sure that you have the distal end in your hand at all times. So this only goes in one way. There's two holes here and it clicks in. You'll feel the click there, and only turn on the processor when the scope is plugged in. So if I power on, now we can plug in the water on this channel. That's distilled water only. And then suction from here. And your suction tubing goes here. And if you see the monitor, it says check camera. That means that the processor is not communicating with the monitor. So that's what this is for. This wire is for. And that connects to this side there. And now we have an image. So the buttons on the processor that are important are going to be the light, which is shaped like a light bulb. And then the pump, which is right below it, will be the insufflation as you're coming through the esophagus and the stomach. So if I hold my finger lightly over the blue button, that's going to be pushing air out of the end of this scope. The other button that's important is the white balance. That's labeled AWB. So you would find something white like gauze and just tap AWB and you'll see the white balance on the screen. So once that's complete, that tells the camera the difference in color. Valves on the endoscope. The red valve is for suction, so when you depress that valve, that's going to suction any fluid through the scope. The blue valve has two functions. If you lightly cover the blue valve, it insufflates air through the scope, so you'll need that to go through the esophagus, through the stomach. You'll need to be insufflating air. And then if you depress completely down on the blue button, that's going to flush water, so rinse any debris that's in your way. And then down here we have the working channel, so take this lid off of the top when you're ready to pass a grasper or a biopsy instrument. That's where your technician will pass the instrument. And then once your instrument has been taken out of there, you want to make sure that the cap is back on. Otherwise, your suction won't be an airtight fit. So then you'll lose suction there. And then the button behind the suction valve is for a picture. So tap once for a picture. And then there's another button on the back here. Tap once for video. Tap again to stop video. And then the knobs here will be navigating the distal end of the scope. So if I wanted to retroflex, which you would do to look back at the cardia and fundus, you would bring it all the way back to that angle. And the scope only does that at one angle. And then come the other way, and that's going to deflect the opposite way with the larger knob. And anytime you release the knobs, that's going to put your distal end back to a neutral position. And then left and right will be your smaller knob. These here will put you in a locking position for each knob. So the large knob, say if I wanted to be locked in a retroflex position, then that's the time that I would use that locking piece there. There, I like to keep the scope plugged in for cleaning. That way I can use the suction and the water valves to flush out those valves. A basin like this, or even, I like one just a little bit longer too. Whatever you have will work just fine, especially if you're using it plugged in. And your endoscope came with a couple samples of 1 tab. This is fine for tap water, it neutralizes itself. So 3 to 7 gallons of water, and then dump the powder in and let the scope soak for at least 2 minutes. And then you can start passing the brush and cleaning. Endoscope is plugged into the processor, or you have the leak-proof cap on the end. The entire scope can be submerged. From there, You can take off these valve covers and the working channel, and we'll pass cleaning brushes through those. Through the distal end of the scope, and then you wipe off the same thing through the suction channel. Now with the suction channel, that's going to be the back button here, and that channel you want to come at an angle, the angle toward the scope. If you go straight down, it's not going to go very far. So come at an angle, and it's going to come out of the distal end again. Then you can replace the valve covers and use the processor to flush the enzymatic cleaner, and we'll utilize that to help us clean it. The red valve is suction, so when we press all the way down on that, that's suctioning the enzymatic cleaner through the scope, and you can see that with your suction canister. And then if you lightly cover the blue valve, that flushes air through those channels. And when you press all the way down on the blue valve, that flushes water, which we have distilled water in that bottle. So irrigate a few times with the enzymatic cleaner. And once you've completed this step, you can dump the enzymatic cleaner, fill this bin with distilled water only, and do those exact same steps, and then dry. There, you'll dump the enzymatic cleaner and fill this bin with distilled water and do the exact same steps. After that, flush with alcohol and let it hang to dry. Wipe the outside completely dry, but it's important that it hangs to dry and for storage. There is in your suitcase a cap that goes on this end that screws in tightly, so make sure that that's locked in. And then we'll take the caps off of the suction valve and the water valve, and make sure that the working channel, this is sealed tightly. This gets screwed into your cap. And then there's another piece in your suitcase that goes on those valves after the caps have been taken off. And they only go on one way. You gotta squeeze that and then press it in, and that secures that tightly. And make sure this is tight, and then squeeze up to the test area and wait 15 to 30 seconds. As long as the needle doesn't deflect, then you know there's not a leak within your scope.
Feel free to contact VetOvation at area code 919-247-0328 if you have additional questions or need assistance with our equipment.